What's up, Coordination? How you doing? On the show today, we have the one, the only Austin Griffith, who is a builder in the space that is building the Build Guild, which is a mechanism for more and more builders to get into the space. Austin has delivered a ton of value to the Ethereum ecosystem. He's helped a lot of builders get their start in the space. And we talk about his journey into Ethereum and how he's now helping other developers get into Ethereum with Scaffold, ETH, Build Guild, and speedrunethereum.com. So if you're a builder, then you're going to want to listen to this episode with Austin Griffith. He is the builder's builder. We talk about his technical skills, how he became an educator, why he cares about public goods in this episode. So if you're a builder, if you're someone who's working on a DApp, this is a great episode for you to get oriented into the builder culture in the Ethereum ecosystem. Really just enjoy Austin's energy. He's a deeply talented technical person, just has a ton of character, is super active in the ecosystem, and he is creating a public good in the space of free education for builders. And I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. So without further ado, Coordination, I give you Austin Griffith.
Immutable X is the layer 2 platform for crypto gaming. Immutable offers massive scalability with up to 9,000 transactions per second and instant transaction confirmation. No more gas fees, no more waiting around for your transaction to clear. Immutable's zero knowledge rollup finally unlocks the world of crypto gaming. Immutable X is the only gas-free NFT minting platform with over 26 million NFTs minted, all with zero gas fees. With the power of Immutable, gaming developers don't also need to become smart contract developers. They just need to plug in to Immutable's API and instantly start unlocking the full potential of crypto assets inside of games. This is why world-class companies and projects have decided to deploy on Immutable X, like GameStop, Ember Sword, Planet Quest, Illuvium, TikTok, and many more behind the scenes. So start building your game on Immutable X today at immutable.com. The Opera crypto browser is the world's first web browser built for the crypto community. With Web3 support and a non-custodial wallet, Opera lets you access DeFi apps quickly and easily. The Opera wallet has buy, sell, and swap features, and of course lets you view your beautiful NFTs, but the browser still lets you use any crypto wallet extension you prefer, giving you the choice and flexibility for the Web3 world. Opera lets you view and manage all of your assets across all the blockchains all at once, and offers seamless multi-chain support between Ethereum, Bitcoin, Polygon, Binance Chain, and other EVMs and layer 2s. But Opera goes even deeper than that. Opera has a built-in homepage for crypto natives with the Opera Crypto Corner, with price charts, news feeds, NFT updates to make sure you are always on top of your game. And it even has Discord and Telegram integrated natively into the browser. That's crazy. Opera is truly building the battle station for the crypto world. Check out Opera both on mobile with Android and iOS apps and on desktop too.
How you doing, Austin?
Good. I'm doing great. How are you, Kevin?
Pretty good. The first 10 seconds of this podcast is just going to be us giggling at each other. So great to have you, man. You and I have worked together for a long time, and it's fun to mint a new podcast episode with you. So let's peel back the onion. Tell me about Speed Run Ethereum and what you've been working on recently.
Word. Heck yeah. So Speed Run Ethereum is a curriculum. After doing tons of mentorship sessions with lots of developers, we finally kind of nailed down a curriculum of things that you should run through. The very first challenge is like building a staking app, and it shows you what Ethereum is good for, and it teaches you through some of the gotchas. So it's just a good education platform in terms of how you learn what Ethereum is for and how you figure out, the concepts in the space. And when people first get in, they start using it like a database, and it's like, no, there's other stuff. But this is like this cool vending machine. You got to learn why it's cool.
Right. Yeah. So you're working in DevRel at the Ethereum Foundation. Speed Run Ethereum is kind of like a educational course in which you can do 30-minute to 60-minute video educational stuff about building dApps with Ethereum. And there's like 8 or 10 levels, something like that, where people can go through learning how to build with Scaffold ETH, which is a development suite that you pioneered. Is that more or less right?
Yeah, exactly. It starts to blur the lines there toward the end between what's a challenge and what's a thing that's on Austin's to-do list that he's trying to give off to you.
Okay. So you've created like a tractor to get developers going down this funnel. And then towards the end of Speedrunning Ethereum, they're actually helping you build Speedrun Ethereum and this thing called the Build Guild DAO. So tell us about the second layer, like pull back the onion on that.
So that's probably like Build Guild, right? So I think actually maybe the first layer is Scaffold ETH, and then the layer around that is Speed Run Ethereum, and then the next layer around that is Build Guild. But if we
Sure.
look at the layer that is Build Guild, it's sort of like the incentivization layer, right? Once the curriculum is there and people have the tools and they're working through things, sometimes they need an extra push, sometimes they need a good job, sometimes they need to survive, right? Survival funds. And that's kind of what Build Guild is. It's kind of developer UBI. You're doing a good job, you're learning, you're contributing. I can stream you a small amount of ETH and you can survive on that ETH while you learn more and either, contribute back to the ecosystem, or maybe find a product that you want to get into, or I team you up with an artist and you guys kind of like build something out. So lots of different paths there, but yeah, it's an incentivization layer, I think.
Right. So I think of Scaffold ETH as like the Ruby on Rails of Ethereum, which allows me to rapidly prototype. It's just really cool to build on Scaffold ETH and to build a new function into a smart contract, and then it automatically shows up on the interface in my DApp. Just allows that scaffolding allows me to move faster in building a DApp. So how many devs are building on top of Scaffold ETH? Like, what's the footprint of Scaffold ETH right now?
It's really interesting because we don't really have a lot of analytics. There's not a lot of hooks in Scaffold ETH in terms of like knowing how many people are using it, how many people are forking it. We know that there have been, more than, I think there's almost like 3,000 forks of it right now. So there's tons of forks of it that we can see on GitHub, but we don't track exactly how many people are using it. We know that we've had, more than 2,000 or 3,000 people coming through Speed Run Ethereum. We've seen 2,000 or 3,000 forks of Scaffold ETH, but we don't have exact numbers on how many people are using it. But it's cool to like go to a hackathon and just have like tons of people come up to me and be like, yo, I use Scaffold ETH to build the thing. And I don't even know about the thing, but the thing is like a popular thing. And it's neat to see, but we don't have great numbers on it, to be honest.
Got it. So Scaffold
It's more
ETH,
cypherpunk if we don't track things, right?
there you go. Laissez-faire cypherpunk.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So Scaffold ETH is basically like the Ruby on Rails of Ethereum, allows you to rapidly prototype DApps. And if you want to learn Scaffold ETH, you can go to speedrunethereum.com and go through kind of like a leveling structure. And as you go through those levels, you kind of get dropped in these Telegram channels where you get introduced to Austin, who will give you stuff on his to-do list to build out the future iterations of Scaffold Ethereum and Speedrun Ethereum. Maybe we'll give you an attaboy or an attagirl on the back, pat on the back, and maybe we'll give you some tokens in exchange for building this funnel. So like the externality of all this is just more developers who are building on Ethereum faster and better. Did I conceive of that correctly?
Yeah. Even to add on to that, more products and prototypes coming out of it. So like lots of developers, a lot of times a developer, it's almost kind of a trick because a developer says, how do I get hired in the space? And I tell them, well, you should speed run Ethereum and build this stuff. But all the while I'm hoping that they don't get hired in the space. I'm hoping that they build their own product and they create something new, brand new in the space. So there's kind of like different, levels of ejection out of the build guild. Level 1 is to just go get hired. Level 2 is to build your own product. And level 3 is to like kind of upgrade even farther and become more of an auditor and learn kind of the intricate details of the EVM and auditing and Solidity.
Right. One of the things I think is so cool about Scaffold ETH is that you've got a template for anything. Sometimes I DM you and I'm like, hey, we want to build this crazy NFT experiment. Actually, maybe Moonshot Bots is a great example of this. So like I have a call with someone associated with the Gitcoin ecosystem in the middle of 2021. We're like, hey, what if we did an NFT that supported public goods funding? And I message you on like a Friday and you're like, yeah, I use this Scaffold ETH template. And then I hack on it over the weekend. And on like Monday or Tuesday, you and I launched Moonshot Bots, which was a way of minting new NFTs on a price curve. So every time you minted a Moonshot Bot, the price of the next Moonshot Bot went up like 4% or something like that. And you and I, through like a weekend worth of hacking, we're able to, because of Scaffold ETH, we're able to launch Moonshot Bots, and that raised like something like $3 million for Gitcoin grants in, I want to say it was like August of 2021. So just like the templates already being available is like you're just starting on third base every time you want to have a build, as long as there's a template for it.
Yep, totally. Yep. We have so many different templates for so many different things. You go to Scaffold ETH and you go to the branches and you just type in NFT and there's like 30 or 40 different NFT branches, whether you want an NFT that's like aging or you want an NFT that is hidden for a while and shows up, or, just so many different kinds of NFTs and marketplaces and DAO tools and DeFi primitives, all built like and they're kind of ugly too. I'll say this: like every good Scaffold ETH build usually looks like shit to start with, because it's like a prototype, right? It's like this like kind of like white, simple, it looks like a HTML form, and you can kind of get in and do what you need to do, and it does the thing, but it's still not like polished and ready for, ready to be a product. Someone needs to take it off the shelf and turn it into that product. Yep.
Right. What are the coolest branches that you have out there? Like, you're on the frontier. So you tell me, what's the coolest thing that you've seen on the frontier?
Oh man, I think SVG SVG NFTs are so much fun right now. So there's probably one that I'm not thinking of that's like gonna be big in like 2 months, and I should have thought of it at this moment. But I kind of have tunnel vision about SVG NFTs right now. Just like making an NFT where it's all rendered on chain. The smart contract itself basically draws the thing. And so we've done a handful of these on top of each other, where we did optimistic loogies and then fancy loogies, and then it's becoming a game. And
can you explain what loogies are? Because I know what they are, but the audience might not.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like a loogie was just a really simple SVG NFT example. We saw loot and a handful of cool SVG NFTs really like take off, but to make them yourself, it was kind of complicated. So I made sure to make like a very, very straightforward, easy, forkable example of how to make an SVG NFT. And that was loogies. It's like just like a little circle and two little eyes. It's like this little simple character, and it's all rendered within the smart contract. But the coolest, fun branches that I've seen around this are really kind of stretching it to the limit, where you have these loogies that are SVG NFTs, but you can mix them together, or you can have them all in a tank and they're like swimming around in the tank, and the tank itself is an SVG NFT. And when it calls its render function, it calls the render function of all of the children inside of it that it owns. So there's this weird composability stuff that you can do with this, but honestly, this is kind of like a flex. It's kind of like a cool art kind of niche thing. It's definitely not changing the world. And I think that like maybe if we zoomed out and looked at some of the stuff we're doing around like fundraising, some of the stuff we're doing around streaming to developers, some of the things, I don't know, like even like co-ownership of things, there's a lot of fun branches that I think might be more popular in the future. But right now, like SVG NFTs are hot, and I think they're fun.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to play with that composability. Like the loogies are just a very small sort of atomic organism, and then you can put them in a fish tank together. Someone could build a way to mate them with each other. You could have them fight to the death. They could race in like a Mario Kart type thing from there. And so it's sort of neat to have that very basic building block, and then see what the community does once that primitive is out there.
Exactly. Yep.
So tell me about the other ones you're excited about. You said streaming to developers and a couple other ones.
So let me just think through some of the fun ones. We have like a multi-sig as a service branch, which is kind of like a simple Gnosis safe, where you get a signature-based Gnosis safe out of the box. It's actually hosted at multisig.lol, but you can go to multisig.lol, you can spin up a multi-sig. Disclaimer, it's not an audited contract. Like it's still a developer thing. You shouldn't probably go do that and make a business out of it yet. But you could, and there's not a lot of, there's basically one good multi-sig in the space right now. And so this is just like kind of adding to that composability, hopefully like adding to that ecosystem. There's like a mobile app that you can fork of ours that's like a working app wallet, like in that we sent to the app store, and it works. There's just like lots of SVG NFTs, of course. A lot of games and challenges, we had someone build a dice game, and then we had someone build something that attacked the dice game, and it like shows how to do randomness on chain. And this is more like feeding back into the challenges, but these are like new challenges that were added to the Speed Run recently from other people, like exploring different kind of avenues of randomness. We have a game coming out in a little while that's supposed to kind of like Crypto Zombies, like trying to redo Crypto Zombies, teach you the syntax and teach you how to build things. Lots of dexes and multi-sigs coming out. I'm scrolling through the branches, the builds right now. Yeah.
So one of the things so you and I were co-work stream leads of a Gitcoin DAO work stream called the Moonshot Collective for a little while, which was kind of like almost like Gitcoin DAO meets Build Guild, just a place for developers to hang out and build stuff together. And you and I kind of worked on a few prototypes together. I'd love to talk about some of the tools that we pioneered there, or I guess more or less you pioneered, but like the streaming to developer thing. I just think it's so neat how that works, because like as I understand it, you get on a call with a developer and you like insta hire them on the spot, and you start streaming them tokens, and basically you built this streaming contract where if they submit a report once a week then of what they've been working on, then they continue to get paid, but if they ghost you after that, then they no longer get paid anymore. So it's like a streaming that fills up and they have to claim it and empty it once per week. And the mechanism, what that does is it allows you to continue pulling them down the rabbit hole by making the hiring decision really quickly, because you have that gating mechanism down the line. And I just thought that was like, wow, I've never met a hiring manager that will just insta hire people casually on the spot and start streaming them tokens. So those kind of innovations I think are really kind of fun. Tell me more about that.
I mean, it just kind of happened randomly, right? Like I built the stream, but I realized like if the stream just flows forever, then you kind of get yourself underwater by streaming to a whole bunch of developers. But if you make the stream a withdrawal pattern and you have that withdrawal pattern kind of auditable and accountable to everyone, then you end up with this, there's probably about 50 streams right now that I have open, but only a small subset of those are actually like live pulling from those. So it allows people to kind of check out and go do other things and come back. And that was kind of something we realized about the DAOs is we're going to have developers that kind of moonlight or go from DAO to DAO, or, come work for us for a little bit and then go back. So it's just way easier to say, hey, you're contributing. There's now this new stream pulling to you, flowing to you. You can pull from it as you need, and you turn in your work and you price it yourself, and it's trust based. And then there's 50 other people like you, and you can go see what all of them are building and turning in.
Yeah.
And they all are keeping their eyes on all the other streams. So it's kind of like a social contract with everyone that you'll equally price your work. And every once in a while, we have some outliers that maybe don't do as much work, or they turn in something that's not really priced. And maybe they do it once, but they just don't do it repeatedly. And I don't know if it's like human behavior or somehow we have just magically found good humans, but it's seemed to work, pretty well. We've had a couple people phase out, but we haven't really had any problems with this kind of trust-based model. Now that we talk about it a lot online, I'm sure we could get attacked.
people know the adversarial circumstances.
Yeah.
So how many people you got on a stream right now?
I think 50. I think we have about 50 streams. So when you go into Speed Run, I think the number right now is about maybe 2,000 to 3,000 people have started the Speed Run. About when you finish the Speed Run, you plop out and you land in Build Guild, and you have a couple more like bigger challenges that you have to build that are kind of more open-ended. So we have about 2,000 to 3,000 starting. We have about 400 to 500 kind of all the way through that have popped out in Build Guild. And then we have about 50 that are on streams right now, and probably another 30 or 40 that are just like getting random scholarships. Using multisig.lol, we basically have like a scholarship multi-sig. And so that's easy for me to like YOLO, $50 to someone who's just contributed one small thing, but that helps to like get them in and, like you said, give them an attaboy and tell them to take this ETH and go register an ENS address, or go deploy a Gnosis safe, or, spend it on gas, or deploy a contract to make an NFT. So 50, I guess, is the answer to that. But there's kind of like another probably soft 50 of like just little scholarships here and there to folks.
Right. Okay. Are there other ways that you're compensating developers in the Build Guild that are sort of like augment the streams, or like, are you guys doing any tip parties or any sort of like intersubjective tools to get people paid?
We tinkered around with that. We're just so async. Like, we don't really get together that regularly. We get together maybe every 2 weeks, and it's just people showing off their builds. So it was just a little bit too formal to have like a coordinate model of like, let's get together and pay people based on everyone voting. We tried it. We tinkered around with it. It was just like kind of too hands-on for Build Guild builders. We're a bunch of like introverted nerds that just want to we don't want to be in meetings. We want to be working and building things, right? So in terms of like extra revenue other than the streams. Now and then there's maybe like a scholarship here and there. But what I try to do is push developers toward the end to deploy their own NFT. Like build a small low limit NFT, make some cool art, and I'll be the first person to buy that. I'll buy a couple of them, right? So there is like this kind of like graduating them to building their own product that can raise funds for themselves to kind of keep going on their own.
Right. Okay. Got it. Um, it's like how many developers total do you think are like actually in the build guild right now?
It's the number is 400 and some, but there was like a quick point where there was maybe like a Sybil attack where we had like maybe 20 or 30 come in. Like we tried to program, we try to do as much like, okay, it seems like we need to reward folks at this moment. I'm doing it kind of naturally in chat, but let's try to build it into the system. And there was like one time we built a function into Build Guild where you get to a certain point and it just gives you $50 to $100 blindly. And someone immediately was Sybil attacking that. So it was like, well, I guess we can't do it that way. So there's a small Sybil attack that led us up to maybe 450 people. But I would say there's about 400 people, like actual real humans in the Build Guild. But I only honestly have seen about 40 of them face to face. So it's a lot of anonymous folks that are just going through that I don't know anything about, but that are kind of like right on the edge now of like possibly getting funds from a stream or from a scholarship or building something. So we'll see.
Right. Well, where is this all going? It seems like you've kind of built this, like you're like the Pied Piper of Ethereum developers over here. Where are you leading your troop of developers?
Well, hopefully, honestly, like hopefully there's not like hopefully it's not a traditional top-down structure. We're trying to build like a hyperstructure of education and building, right? I think what you even talked about it a lot with Moonshot is trying to build the machine that builds machines, right? We want to have kind of a self-fulfilling system in a lot of ways where there's more and more developers coming in and they love to contribute. Like all of them are just like, this was such a good program. How do I contribute back? How do I do more? And it's like, well, go build something and let's turn it into a challenge. I think the overall goal is lots of devs coming into the space, having the right tools and education to go on and do their own thing. But if they do want to contribute back, having a system that allows them to do so in a way that kind of keeps the machine going, kind of builds more challenges and builds more community.
Right. So it's almost like, it seems like it's almost like Conway's Game of Life in a certain way. Like it's composed, it's like building itself, but there's no specific direction other than just having more developers into the space, and they can go off and do whatever they want, but they can come back to the Build Guild and have not a fraternity, but like a camaraderie with other builders. It's like a club that you're in.
It is the most introverted club ever too.
Oh, yeah?
Like when we get on the calls, it's like me and 20 nerds in a YouTube and it's silent.
Is that why you're always like bringing the energy level up?
I gotta bring the energy for all 20 of us here.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Yeah. Which is, I mean, those are my people, right? Folks that are quiet and want to build things. So yes, it is kind of like a fraternity, but a very quiet fraternity.
Right. Seems like there's a lot of just kind of like dry powder there from an intellectual and engineering perspective that could do a lot of good for the space. I'm curious, like with these builders, we've just talked so much on Twitter about the market being down and sentiment being down, but are you seeing as many builders come into the space? And if so, has the sentiment changed at all over the last couple of months?
I mean, like for sure, just my own ability to fund developers has shrunk, right? Like, like I used to be able to YOLO these streams a lot quicker. And, I used to have enough money that I could just be like, yes, go, here you go, and so my own ability has kind of shrunk a little bit. I would say that like maybe some of the BS has gone down and there's more builders that are like a little bit more focused on like creating cool things rather than creating things that make money. But yeah, I don't know if we've even really felt the effects totally of the market going down yet in terms of these numbers of developers coming in. I don't have a great feeling about how it's going. It seems like people are still continuing to stream in. I mean, influencers are getting like less likes and stuff like that, but I would say that we still have tons of builders quietly building. I don't know. The market overall only only affects my ability to pay people more than anything, I think.
Right. Okay.
The dry powder thing. I want to pull that thread though. You talked about dry powder. I think it's so true. I think there's all these introverts that are building these cool things that are basically making prototypes, and you've seen it too. And I think it's something fun for us to noodle on a little bit. Some of these prototypes aren't really ready for mainstream. Sometimes some of these builders are building things that have been built before or aren't quite products themselves. And that's something that I think the Build Guild needs to do better at. We need to do better at going pro. If we want to really use this dry powder and really like build a cannon and fire some cannonballs, I think that we have to focus on going pro and as a builder comes through and they kind of ship one or two things, it's fine if those things are ugly and kind of do the thing they need to do, but don't look professional. But I need to start transitioning builders from building prototypes to building products. And that takes an extra thing. And you know it too, right? You really have to polish something up. And that last 20% takes so long to get it right, and finding product market fit and all that kind of stuff. So that's something I definitely want to noodle on with you, just because it's something that we've kind of maybe even butted heads about a little bit in the past. How do I get these Build Guild builders that build things to 80% to have a few things that go to 100% and knock a few things out of the park? And that's kind of an open question.
Right. Yeah. Building Legos versus building totally polished projects can be really tough. But one thing I think Gitcoin fell ass backwards into is an audience that already understands MetaMask and private keys and transactions. We're building for developers, and you just get so much when you're just building for an audience that has a computer science education or equivalent, because you don't have to explain wallets to them. And so, maybe that's like we're spoiled by our own building for developers in that.
And another thing is the fact that now and then I'll have multiple teams working on the same thing. I feel like when we first spun up some Gitcoin DAO stuff and we were building things, there was almost this like, maybe people even thought that we were like having two teams compete, like fight to the death style or something, right? And it's not at all like that. It's more like, go fast alone or go far together. When you go far together, sometimes that means that there's going to be 2 or 3 teams trying different things in the area of this particular challenge. And so that it looks inefficient, right? You're talking about this bottom up emergent structure rather than a top down, you guys do this, and we'll meet in the middle. It's more like we need to get from here to here. Y'all try to figure out what you can figure out. We're going to try to figure out what we can figure out. And, there's funding to try to work toward that. So another like strange thing with the Build Guild, other than, we're getting a lot of 80% of the way there, is this idea of there's a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of developers building things that have already been built just to learn. But there's also a lot of people building products that are maybe just like, to add to the ecosystem, but not necessarily become products. So lots of interesting things.
Reminds me of client diversity, where you've got basically 4 or 5 clients that do multiple things. And so just having different approaches creates anti-fragility in the ecosystem, not just at the client level, but Aaron and I did this podcast episode about practical pluralism, taking the idea of client diversity and bringing it up and down the stack. And it seems like you've kind of stumbled onto the same sort of thing.
Yep, exactly. In prototyping, basically, like it's totally fine for multiple people to be trying out different prototypes, and let's see what we end up getting, and then let's use them and play with them and see how it goes.
ReFi summer has arrived, and CELO is here for it. CELO is the layer 1 blockchain for the regenerative finance movement. It's fast, planet positive, and built for the real world. CELO has committed towards producing a sustainable future from the very beginning, and is the world's first carbon negative, EVM compatible layer 1 blockchain. CELO has become much more than a technology, a currency, a community, or even just a layer 1. CELO is a movement to create conditions of prosperity for everyone. You can soon engage with all of this via green asset Uniswap pools on CELO, benefiting reforestation and other regenerative generative products through the Toucan protocol, Moss, and more. ReFi is also about the health of communities, and Resource Network is creating Bankless infrastructure for circular trade and mutual credit networks to benefit small businesses and local economies, all on CELO. Follow along on Twitter to learn more about how CELO is accelerating ReFi Summer for a positive impact on people, communities, and the planet. If you're attending ECC, visit the CELO Saloon to learn about what's happening on the front lines of ReFi from industry experts. COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses who need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage their treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the extremely secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasuries to expressive, flexible, multi-chain features such as global user management, global contracts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization. COINSHIFT layers on powerful treasury management tools on top of the proven security of Gnosis Safe, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Messari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. In DeFi, you have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless.
So you said you're excited about on-chain NFTs. Have you started playing with like any decentralized society, DID, soulbound stuff? Because it seems to me like that's kind of one of my predictions is that the intersection of identity and Web3 is going to be pretty huge. Any builds going in that direction, or is that not something you're excited about too?
It's like we're tinkering with it. I don't think I agree though. I think that there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening both like cross chain and off chain. There's a lot of narrative that happens with an account that isn't always written on chain, or it's not always written on mainnet. And there's a lot of different, I mean, like we were around back in the day when DIDs back in my day we had DIDs. I remember them things. Yeah, exactly. Like we were around for those. I've heard people talk about DIDs for like 6 years now, and I feel like maybe finally someone's actually going to like build a production level thing that uses them, and it's going to be a thing. So it seems exciting, but it's not something that I've tinkered much with, but I'm all about it. Like the way we're working as prototypers is we're watching all y'all do cool things. And as soon as Vitalik says something about soulbound NFTs, and there's like 4 different prototypes of soulbound NFTs coming out of Build Guild, right? So I think that maybe we're not ahead of the game, we're behind the game, but we're watching for y'all to signal that this is something that's interesting, and then we dive in and start building a bunch of prototypes around it.
Well, what I'm really excited about is like soulbound NFTs are like I think that they're soulbounds or tokens or DIDs are like the trees, and you got to see the forest. So I'm really excited about this idea of decentralized society, which is basically, I issue you an soulbound NFT or a VAC that says Austin has the best dance moves of any developer that I've ever known, and Gitcoin's issuing these NFTs that say that you contributed to Gitcoin grants. And so basically, what you're doing is you're creating these little intersubjective identities in which we're all attesting to each other, and at scale that really liquid reputation system allows you to do a lot of interesting things with on-chain identity, because like basically you're building up these reputations over time, you're accruing them, and then you can do things like under collateralized loans to these people because like who they are, or at least something about that, what they are. So there's like a network effect to build where more soulbound tokens, DIDs, creates more utility for those kind of things, and more utility means that more people will build them, and it's just about spinning that. So I'm excited more. I guess the TLDR is I'm more excited about decentralized society than I am about soulbound tokens, and that's why I'm sending some cycles there.
Dope, cool, yeah. And I one thing that like is going to help with that is all of these layer 2s and being able to make some of these attestations at a much cheaper rate and a much faster, quicker, a network that still has the same security as L1 Ethereum. So I think that like we think about, some kind of social app where we're able to communicate with each other and we're able to, measure our trust between each other. Like that is really hard on mainnet Ethereum, but I think it's a lot easier on an L2 when those attestations are cheaper.
Yeah, totally. Are most of the builds or deployments that y'all are doing, are those on the mainnet, or are those on Optimism or another L2 these days?
So whenever we need to do like fundraising things, that's usually on mainnet Ethereum, just because that's where people are used to YOLOing some ETH. But whenever we do something fun that's like a neat composable NFT that requires, some game mechanics in it, that usually lands on an L2. The loogies and all the games around the loogies ended up on Optimism, and that's kind of one of our favorites. But we really shouldn't pick favorites. There's a lot of great ones, and as long as they're EVM compatible, I'm an EVM maxi. As long as I can deploy using Scaffold ETH, then I'll do it.
Yeah, I was curious for you as a builder that's on the frontier. I read this post on ETH Research by Vitalik about a rollup centric scaling roadmap for Ethereum. And I feel like I'm constantly explaining to people when they say, oh, the ETH mainnet has had high gas fees, that, oh, you can just use an L2 today and it's a thousandth of the price, but it's the same security. And people are saying, I don't know what that is, and I don't care. Ethereum is slow. And so what I'm really excited about is the builders on the front line starting to use L2s to deploy their apps. And I think one thing that needs to really get better is bridging. So basically being able to get your assets from the mainnet to the bridge in order to be able to use them on the L2s will make that modular blockchain not just scalable, but as usable as a monolithic blockchain.
And if you look at like Rainbow, one of the wallets, it's kind of hard for a developer to use sometimes because you want to be able to switch networks, but you'll notice that there's not a lot of network switching. A lot of the network switching is abstracted away from the user, and that's probably what the future looks like in terms of, am I even storing this on an L2 or L1? I don't even know. I'm just hitting store and it's working and it's fast and cheap. And like you said, and the bridging and all of that stuff, and kind of happens under the abstraction, and the end user just sees quick and fast transactions.
Right. I guess I'm curious, how did you get into doing education? I think you mentioned like your parents are educators. Is this just like your Web3 hipster way of continuing their legacy of teaching people about how to be competent in the world?
Possibly. Like I did have like, both of my parents were school teachers, and my dad was a school administrator eventually. So I like educating. I have like I feel like an empathetic brain that's okay at doing the education stuff. I think I got into the space at first. I mean, if you don't say that like programming money obviously sounds like something you can make money doing, then you're lying to yourself. Like a lot of people get into this space because there's financial aspects to it, right? Yeah. But I got in and I started building games and building things, kind of assuming that like, oh wow, like I'm a full stack developer. I can be a millionaire overnight. Right. And I got in and just like built things. And honestly, I was not a millionaire, right? And so I kept trying things. And one of the things that really resonated with the space was when I built tools or when I showed off those tools. So I would say that the space selected me as an educator rather than me selecting education. It just kind of happened to, I got rewarded by the space for putting out tools, and I got rewarded by the space just in terms of eyeballs and likes for creating educational content. And I just kept doing it. Like it seemed like it resonated with the space, and so I just kept doing that thing.
Right. Do you know how like every school teacher has a story about how like they ran into one of their students at the grocery store and they're like, "You taught me how to speed run Ethereum. Thanks, Mr. Griffith."
That happens.
Like, you have that a lot?
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh dude, like every hackathon, it's crazy. So it's really, really hard. Like I said, we don't track any numbers with Scaffold ETH. It's really, really hard to really provide anybody with metrics about how effective we're being. But just like walk around with me at a hackathon sometime. Like ETH New York was the latest one, and it's just like person after person, super nice, coming up. I got in, I used Scaffold ETH to build the product that we now have. Or at ETH Denver, this dude was like, I was frying chicken and I went through Speed Run Ethereum and now I'm making 6 figures or something like that. That really was like someone quoted that, but that was like a real quote. Like people come up to me a lot and say that like it was something that was very useful for them, and that was the point. I'm trying to make this thing like super succinct and quick and obvious, that like you get through the stuff that is most important and it gets you straight to building as fast as possible. So I try to curate this thing as much as I can to make it good, but I do get a lot of like really nice messages and a really like lots of hugs and handshakes when I go to a hackathon. Like a lot
Yeah.
of random people too. Like I'll just be like walking down the street 2 blocks away from the hackathon, and someone I've
Yeah.
never seen before would be like, Austin, what's up? And like give me a high five or something like that. Like, I just want
Yeah.
to thank you for what you do. And I don't know who they are or what they did or what I helped
Yeah.
them with. But there's a lot of those moments, which I don't know, it's awesome. That's validating to me.
Nice. Yeah, we talk in the GreenPilled book about regen Web3 being things that have an impact on people's lives. And, we can talk about how developers being in the space is a public good for the space because it increases the total, like basically the number of DApps in the space at like the systemic level. But I think that once you get to that personal level of someone was working at Subway or like frying chicken and now they're making 6 figures, they're effectively, you made them into a middle-class person that can support themselves and commit code into the space. I think that that's really what makes Speed Run Ethereum and Build Guild a regen project, is the impact that it's having on people's lives.
I hope so. We could even rewind a little bit back to the birth of the meme of Quadratic Freelancer.
Okay.
There was a time, yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if we're gonna rewind, we got to make the sound effect for it, like screw. Tell me about the yeah. There you go. So wait, you were a Quadratic Freelancer?
I sure was. Yeah, I think I have. Let's see, where is it? I have this machine back here is my Ethereum validator.
ETH too, Ned. Yeah, you're really flexing that. For those of you watching the video, there's a terminal behind Austin, and it's minting blocks in the beacon chain.
But the keyboard, it's not this white keyboard. There's another keyboard there. The keyboard was a gift from you. I think that you gave me at ETH Denver a couple years ago.
It's the keyboard I built the Gitcoin MVP with, and you said it's still got some of the Cheetos.
Oh yeah,
when I was doing that,
and beard hairs. There's some. Yeah. I hope they're beard hairs.
That's so we named it Clacky, and Clacky. There are many like her, but that one was mine, and I think that I gave you that keyboard on stage at ETH Denver 2019, 2020, because you were the number one person on the Gitcoin leaderboard. You'd earned the most amount of money from the Gitcoin grant system, and Vitalik called you the first. Yeah, Vitalik called you the first Quadratic Freelancer.
Like when I graduated from college, I had a master's degree in electrical engineering, and the first year out of college, I made about $70K, and that was a shitload of money for me at the time. A few years later, I was just writing open source software for the Ethereum ecosystem, and I made the same amount through bounties through the Gitcoin platform. And that was the shift. And then I came and worked with you guys, came and worked at Consensus for a while. Like that was the shift from, I was working at a job where I was building this really cool piece of orchestration software that ran on top of Docker, and I couldn't open source it. And I just wanted to find a new job that was more, open source and Ethereum related. And that's how I found you. And that early $70K was like the thing that kind of kept me alive and kept me going. And so, yeah, I was the first Quadratic Freelancer. No big deal.
Nice. So Vitalik defined that as someone who is living mostly off of donations from the crowd supported by Quadratic subsidies. So basically, once you cross the threshold of not having to get a job and being able to spend most of your time working on open source, then you're a Quadratic Freelancer. And I think that you were the first early adopter of Gitcoin grants. This is back before you were at the Ethereum Foundation, and so you made $70K that year. And so that means two things. You probably did pretty well in the GTC airdrop. You got a lot of governance tokens, and then you also got Clacky out of that.
That's true. Of equal value in my heart.
Of equal sentimental value.
Yes. Yep. There's no value. That's right. There is no value to those governance tokens. Owaki will tell you.
So it's kind of like really makes me happy to hear that Gitcoin supported you during your winter period during that bear market, and like the fractal impact that you've had on all of these people in the space because you're still in the space. So like the generator function of public goods is creating other people who are generating public goods, and hopefully like those people that met you at a hackathon are paying it forward from there.
Yeah. And what you do, if you're like wondering how you do that, go to speedrunethereum.com. Run through the curriculum at speedrunethereum.com. Even if it's like simple, it'll take you 2 hours if you're a good programmer. maybe longer if not, but like it'll take you a while just to get the mental model. But do Speed Run Ethereum, get the mental model, and then get in the build guild, and we'll start helping you out. Or don't, and just go build some stuff. But the key is build things, show it off, give back to the ecosystem, and repeat, and kind of get in that loop of just like building random prototypes. Like you said, Lens is hot right now, right? Go build a little social app with Lens and Scaffold ETH, or show off, Foundry's a new tool right now. Go pick up Foundry and do a cool build with it and show it off to the ecosystem. That's how you get started with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll make a lot of mistakes your first time around.
You'll look like a jabroni for sure.
I remember my first contracts when I built the MVP of Gitcoin, I put the JSON for each bounty on chain instead of storing in an IPFS. This is back when gas was like 1 Gwei, so you could get away with it back then. But it's funny what you learn by doing things wrong the first time around.
And you have to do it. Like, you have to make the mistakes. Like if you're petrified and scared and worried about making mistakes, you may never make that first step. And even if you fall a few times on the first few steps, like eventually you'll get it going. And it's just about putting one foot in front of the other and getting started.
Do you find that people have different learning styles? Because I find that I can like sit back and I can read a book about Solidity programming, and it doesn't register the same way as when I'm like banging my head against the compiler and or the processor and trying to get it to work. Like, do you find that most people learn by doing, or are people visual learners? Like, what, you're an educator. What are the distributions of different learning types people have?
I don't know if I know the distribution amounts. I do know that there are different learners, right? I know that for visual learners, I made eth.build, and I have a lot of people reach out that like it resonated and it really helped them get over kind of like tutorial hell or whatever, right? And hopefully Speedrun Ethereum really gets people over tutorial hell. But like you said, if you're just staring at, if a book is just giving you all the answers and that's what you're staring at, it makes sense and you get a good context of things. But until you have to apply that and actually build something and you're challenged, like it's not sinking in. There's a moment on Speedrun Ethereum where you're on the first challenge and it's walking you through it, and you get right to the point where you need to write a staking function. You have to write the function, and there's nothing there helping you other than write a function that allows people to stake and keep track in this mapping. And at that moment, your brain has to start creating. And if it doesn't, then it's stuck and it's not. And so I get everyone to that moment and push them as hard as I can to like make sure that blinking cursor starts typing stuff and they start building stuff. So different learners for sure. If visual learners, there's a lot of visual learners that learned kind of from eth.build and they're able to get the concepts down. I would say that Scaffold ETH is good for most. There's a couple folks that I've had come through Scaffold ETH that were definitely like a different type of learner, where they wanted more text. They wanted more, they wanted it to be more verbose. And I was like, okay, make the verbose thing and we'll give that out also. And so there's also like versions of the speed run that are, like pages and pages of text that can help you like really explain things. But the way I built it on purpose was like a quick one-liner, build this to do this and watch out for this. And that's all I say. And hopefully like I kind of get out of the way and let them work on it. So definitely different types of learners. I don't know what the cross section is of shape rotators versus whatever, but like trying to get the right material in front of the right people takes time, and you got to try a few things before you see what resonates with folks.
Right. It's a meme I haven't heard in a long time, shape rotators versus word cells. But I think it refers to visual learners, people who can kind of like process things spatially in their mind, versus verbal, which is a slower circuit.
Yeah. And I think there are also some like kind of garbage mimetic things along with that too that we're not supposed to be talking about. So yeah, maybe throw that meme out, I think.
Right. Last question. We only have like 10 minutes left. How do you keep your optimism alive? Like, you're one of the most energetic people. You've been building through bear markets before. What makes you like wake up and want to do this every day?
Change a lot of diapers. You do too, probably.
Yeah. So
there's nothing more fun than finally getting to my desk and getting to do work.
Okay, so your bull case for building on Ethereum is that it's not changing
Have
a shitty
kids.
diaper with your kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like,
These kids
things.
don't know, Austin. They don't know
These kids
about
don't
having
know.
kids and
No, no, and probably good advice is, don't have kids, build things. It takes up so much of my time. So optimism, though, like, so much cool stuff comes out of the space. If you are at all bearish on Ethereum, go to one Ethereum hackathon and just catch the vibe. Go from table to table asking people what they're
yeah.
working on, what they're thinking about.
Oh.
Holy moly.
Is that
There's,
what I called it? ETH
so much.
Denver 2020, the vibe?
Yeah. Like, yeah, that was the virus that everyone got.
The vibe went viral that
virus.
year.
Yes.
You're right. There is a lot of people who, one thing I like about this space is that it's easy to get distraught about the state of the world, but when you can program political economies that basically you can program governance and you can program your values into your money, it just makes you feel like you can be a hot knife through butter through some of society's problems and build something better. And a lot of that is still potential energy. I don't think that NFTs or DeFi have really regenerated the world too much, but there's a lot that we could build that could regenerate the world in the category of like quadratic funding and solving prisoners' dilemmas and coordination failures. So that's always the North Star that I'm aiming for. But it's nice to meet other people. Like, I always felt like I was alone until I got into the Ethereum space. Then I met people at at ETH Denver and caught coronavirus, but also the vibes.
I think Amin's talk at MCon was really impactful to me in terms of thinking about, what's the end game for Ethereum? When we're thinking about mechanism design and we're thinking about building these games for people to play and we're thinking about game theory and coordination, who could be our biggest target audience, right? And when we start thinking about basically this game theory playing out at like a nation state level and writing smart contracts for nation states to stake their military budget or something like that, that starts to get, of course, like, we're way out in the hopium area here, and we're taking bong rips pretty hard when we're having these conversations. But there's a possibility, there's a non-zero possibility that Ethereum smart contracts are used at a nation state level to create coordination that you couldn't create before. Like, if you explain simple escrow to someone and, Alice and Bob want to, Alice has some shoes and Bob wants to buy those shoes. You have to have this trusted third party in the middle that holds both the shoes because Alice and Bob don't trust each other. And when you start to scale that out and start to program that escrow and start to talk about nation states not being able to get along and what could be the thing that creates that coordination, this, for the first time in history, we may have a platform that could do it. Obviously, there's a lot of things that need to grow and get bigger and a lot more adoption that has to happen. But that kind of thing really gets me goosebumpy. Like, I think there's something there for sure. I don't know if I'll be around to see it, but I hope so.
Yeah. So you're saying it's all coordination is what I heard.
It always has been.
Okay. Yeah, I think that, just learning about the prisoner's dilemma, which is this game theoretic idea that when two people are able to coordinate, they're able to create better outcomes for their shared needs than if they don't coordinate. As a game theoretic primitive, made me see coordination failures and prisoners' dilemmas all over society, where if only we could coordinate and then we could solve them. And I think that what's cool about Ethereum is that, and just Web3 in general, is that it's this transparent, immutable substrate for human coordination that we can scale globally and actually have trillions of dollars of assets in it. So it's actually backed by something that matters. And so if you view we just had Daniel Schmachtenberger on the GreenPilled podcast. He talked about global scale coordination failures and what if we could scale up coordination technology in order to coordinate better outcomes and solve some of these global coordination issues. It's like really starts very small as an open source repo, but once it's on chain, it could get very big, in theory at least. And I think that that's the most exciting thing for me.
You talked about cutting through society's problems with a hot knife, or like a hot knife through butter. I don't even think it needs to be a hot knife through butter. Like, right now, I would say that there are, in general, I would say that people don't feel much agency in terms of changing the world or fixing some of these bigger problems. They see them as, I am this one little person. I can have some small effect by influencing maybe, but I can't change the rules. I don't have the agency to really change things. And I think that this, like a smart contract platform, a trust minimized environment where people can stake in and have, Juan Benet talks about incentives. Create an incentive toward the behavior that you want to see happen. One single incentive. Create it correctly and make that move. And then on the other side, figure out what the next step is and create an incentive to drive people down that step. And if we do that over and over again, we start making the world a better place. And I think that we're giving agency to folks that haven't had that agency before.
Yeah.
And it's a new time, I think, for builders and creators and hopefully even nation states. We'll see.
Yeah. So you're saying that Web3 kind of makes people more agentic in that they can have an impact on the world. Whereas before you might be kind of like resigned to the status quo because you're a hacker, you can't really do much about it. But I guess, the one area where I kind of get off my hopium and come up for like a little bit of just like reality checking myself is that it feels like right now the space is more geared towards Ponzinomics, that like more capital rotates into the projects that have the most Ponzinomics. What would have to be true for capital to rotate into projects that have the best impact, or are doing the best good for the world? Is there a class of long-term greedy investors and talent that can come in and work on impact DAOs or things that have that object level good for the world? And like the example that I'll use is like, like I was recording a podcast with Balaji this morning. He was talking about how like commodities futures, like basically potatoes in the ground, you can have people speculate on top of that, but they're like speculating on the risk, and that creates an actual function to the financial system. In that, like if a storm comes along and like kills all of the potatoes, I actually don't know how potatoes can be killed, but like let's say there's some sort of risk with like a blight or something like that, then like that financial engineering on top of that creates something for like risk management for the economy. But like when it's yams, like the actual like digital tokens that have no connection to the world, and it's all like we're just breeding these like potatoes, these digital potatoes that have no actual impact on the world. Like people can't eat a digital potato, then it's not connected to anything. So like how do we rotate into things that actually have an impact and are useful to people in their everyday lives and away from Ponzinomics? Do you think about that at all?
I think that's probably a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I would say I'm at least one level of abstraction below that, and I'm looking up to homies like Vitalik and bigger picture thinkers. And when they say, "Hey, we have a chance here. If we could build this thing, then I go build it."
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful for it, but it's not something that I don't play at that level. I don't think.
But what do you
I'm
tell the
hopeful.
builders that like you're Pied Pipering into the ecosystem? Are you like, here's a project that wants to hire you, but just so you know, it looks like it's kind of like a Ponzi. Like, like where do you draw the line for the people that you're taking under your wing?
I really don't run into that very often. I would say now and then I'll have someone that's like, "Hey, I'm deploying this to BSC," and I'm like, "Wow, why are you deploying it to BSC?" Like, there's times where I'm like, there's better chains that are more decentralized, and decentralization is important here, and you have to have the chat about decentralization a little bit. I don't run into it too much where it's like, I would say I've gotten lucky. I don't know. There's like this luckiness about the folks.
Do you think it's your vibe?
Through.
Your vibe just like
it might be the vibe.
People?
The vibe is like a no bullshit vibe. Yeah, for sure. Like when someone comes in and they're trying to make a bunch of money, they're usually not talking to me, right? They're not like, if you're looking to figure out how to pump a meme coin or something like that, you don't come through Build Guild and work with us. I don't think. A lot of these folks are quiet introverts that want to give back and create cool things, and just they get a lot of joy from building.
Right. Well, appreciate you building a rainbow road to public goods and regen projects where developers can work on the public good. So keep up the great work, Austin. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to say?
I'll probably think of something later, but Speed Run Ethereum is the most important part. If you're a builder out there, go Speed Run Ethereum.
Right. So you're saying I should Speed Run Ethereum at speedrunethereum.com.
You definitely should Speed Run Ethereum at speedrunethereum.com. Thanks,
right.
Kevin. Thanks for having me.
The man himself. All right.
That's right.
Peace, Austin. Thanks for joining.
Hearts. See you. Thank you.